Have you ever wondered what lurks in the dark and misty woods of the Pacific Northwest?
Or how Starbucks became the coffee giant we know today?
Why Oregon has so many serial killers?
Or if Bigfoot really poops in the woods?
Then you need to listen to the Rainy Day Rabbit Holes podcast. I'm Shay.
And I'm Jody.
Join us each week as we bring you the not-so-serious side of Pacific Northwest history.
On our show, you can hear great content like...
This wine smelled, to me, reminiscent of urinal cake.
Ooh, gosh.
And thoughtful insights like...
Next time I accidentally show up to one of these, I'm just going to whip my out.
There's your tip.
And then I'm going to say, no tip, we're even. Discover the charm and intrigue of this region like never before, where every raindrop leads to a new adventure.
If you like your history hysterical, then join us every week.
Whether you're a Pacific Northwest native, a transplant, or just curious about the upper left corner of North America, this podcast is for you.
Subscribe to Rainy Day Rabbit Holes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts, and let the rain take you on a wild ride.
See you down the rabbit hole.
Hi there, welcome to Not Your Average Goat. I'm your host, Tisha Gillespie, and this is a show that celebrates all the shapes, sizes, and colors of diversity as well as adversity. Through authentic conversations, we hope to have an impact on dismantling societal stigma while creating a place for relatable storytelling.
Lonnie, I'd love to know, since Zach is our mutual connection, I would love to know kind of how you and Zach initially got connected.
I really got into adaptive sports and got connected to several nonprofits and then stayed connected to a lot of the rec therapists throughout the VA community and through these blind rehab centers. And they made that introduction. They said, here's this blind guy, how about reaching out to him? So I did, and we talked, and I had him go to an event out in Colorado and invited him to it, and he came, and that's where we met in person for the first time and really, got going. And I remember him telling the story, as we did the event, and I can't remember at that point whether it was snow skiing or whether it was summer sports of hiking and biking and a little rock climbing. I just remember exactly where it was at. And as we sat around of an evening with, it's just, we call it BASH, Blind Adaptive Sports Heroes. But anyway, we were sitting around of an evening, just all these other blind veterans. And I distinctly remember him talking at one point. And he said, Lonnie, I just don't know what to tell people about how I lost my eyesight and how to do this. And he was really kind of frustrated and somewhat angry. And I understand, hadn't lost his eyesight that long at that point. And I just distinctly remember telling him, I said, own it. I said, what happened? I said, own it. I said, when you own it, it doesn't own you. And then I also told him, and along with the other people that were there, all the same thing, as I said, you guys have to realize that a lot of these people that you're running into, you might be the very first blind person they've ever really met or had a conversation with. As far as I'm concerned, it's our responsibility to teach them about how to deal with someone who's blind or visually impaired and how to interact to begin with anyway. I said, then once we do that, then we have I think a little bit more of a right to hold them accountable for some of the things they might say or think. But I truly do believe that we need to give a little bit of grace, if you will, a little latitude to people because they don't know what they don't know. And how are they ever going to know if we don't help teach them? So, and I distinctly remember Zach telling me a few months after that how impactful those two comments were to him. Owning it and teaching it. And so, and now I look at him today and he's just thriving. He's going to be a huge asset, a big major force, I think, within the blind community of helping others and setting examples and just And then just on his own personal, he's just going to achieve so much. He's just such a good young man, an intelligent young man. And yeah, I'd love to see where he's going to go.
I love it. I am excited too. It's been so impressive learning about his journey, teaching himself to code and developing that game. But one thing that really stood out to me from that conversation, and I think it's reflective of that, the ownership and owning his experience, is he said that, to reflecting on how he lost his vision and the events leading up to it, obviously there was a lot of depression involved and, the suicide attempt. And he said that, looking back, I can say to everyone out there that it's okay to not feel okay. Everyone's going to go through depression, but what's not okay is to not talk about it, because that's when you end up maybe doing something like I tried to do.
I think depression is a form of adversity. And I like to tell people too, the way, in my opinion, to start to overcome adversity is to break it down. I'm a big acronym guy.
I love it.
And at adversity, ADVERSITY. And the hardest part, and the first thing you'd have to do to overcome adversity, is the A and the D. Acknowledge that it's going to be different and difficult at times. But it's kind of that acknowledging and accepting that. And once you truly acknowledge it, it's here, it's happening, it's real, it's happening to you. Don't compare it, don't dismiss it, don't say, well, I shouldn't feel this way because they got it worse than I do, or whatever the case may be. Just simply acknowledge it. This is where I'm at, but I don't have to stay here. This is where I'm at, but. And once you get to that but part, it gives you the power to do the VER, to visualize every route you can take to deal with it, to overcome it, to surpass it, to move forward. And then it gives you the S, the strength to stand up and step to where the ITY, into you, into your future, the life you can still live, the people you can influence, the things you can do.
You just made my day with that acronym, Lonnie. I love that so much. It's an incredible way to look at that journey. And it's so tactical, I think, for those who may not know what that first step should be.
Yeah, it's just like taking, in my case, acknowledging it. It's like the first step up a mountain or first paddle stroke through a rapid. It seems overwhelming.
One thing I like to do with everyone on the show, though, is to actually go back in time a little bit and find out, thinking of your 7, 8, 9-year-old self, who you were, and kind of reflecting on like maybe your interests or your passions for back then. And does that at all feel like the Lonnie of today? Are there any connections between your 7, 8, 9-year-old self and who you are today?
My 7, 8, 9, I don't even remember my 7, 8, 9-year-old self. That is one thing that I can honestly say, that I don't remember a lot of my childhood. And when I was shot, for whatever reason, a lot of my long-term memory just kind of disappeared. And the doctors told me, said it's not gone. It's just going to take the right things to bring it out. And a lot of it I've gotten back, I know, or some of it. And some of the things, though, that I distinctly remember that were impactful in my life is the way back then, my mom and dad, my mom was a little more timid, but my dad always encouraged me to just go do things and, don't be afraid to do things. And like I said, I was a little guy. I was 4'11", weighed 110 pounds when I got my driver's license.
Wow.
And 5'4", weighed 120 when I graduated. But I also remember my grandmother telling me, Lonnie, focus on your gifts. Focus on your gifts. Don't, I got picked on and harassed a lot when I was small, so young, because I was so small. And, she was just constantly focus on your gifts, focus on your gifts. And after I lost my eyesight, that started to resonate in my mind again. Focus on your gifts, Lonnie. Don't dwell on what you lost. Focus on your gifts, the things you can still do. And I just love being outside. I was raised in a little bitty town, 120 people, on a little small little couple acres, but on that couple acres we had cows and pigs and chickens and rabbits and a few dogs, a big garden. And then the community around me, there was a lot of farming and stuff as well. So I had a lot of freedom to roam and get out and about. So I enjoyed nature and still do. So growing up, we didn't have a whole lot. Truly didn't. I remember, my dad working hard, working 2 or 3 jobs to try to provide more, and my mom wearing shirts down to her knees to cover the holes in her pants. And, when Dad, you give her money to go get something, get her some more pants, and I say Dad giving her money, that's not really the way it worked, but Dad getting enough money to where she could go get more pants, and yet she'd spend it on me and my brother instead of on herself. But then again, I look at the other people in the community at that time. We were all in that same boat. So many of us were all in that same boat. But yet, the community was happier. And, you left your doors unlocked and you just went running down everyone. You run through anyone's yard, and everyone had the right to discipline you and teach you, but yet, you could just sit and you could run over to the neighbor's house and sit down and talk with this, older couple, and they just do so much and give you, like a caramel apple, or they give you whatever and sit and talk to you, and you can help them and go play with these kids here and play with these kids there. And it was just fun. As much as we, quote unquote, didn't have, we had so much more than we do today. Because I sit and I look at my grandkids and they can't do that. And how did we get to where we're at? She struggled so bad, and this is probably something maybe I shouldn't go into, but I think about, when I was growing up, I would take off out the door 11, 12 years old, and be gone all day, and just tell Mom I'm going north, I'm going south, just be home for supper, and then we'd go to school, and we'd have our guns literally out in the open, loaded, sitting in the parking lot of the school, knowing that after school we was going to go with our buddies to go plink and just shoot around or go hunting or whatever, and no concept of thinking of other than that, going out with them to do, and now to where, how did we end up to where we're at now with all of what I wanted to do growing up? I had no clue.
I remember this funny scene. I think it was in the documentary that you did. And you were joking. It was like, yeah, if you asked my dad what I wanted to be when I was older, he'd probably tell you I wanted to be an idiot.
Yeah. True.
Because you went in, you were a U.S. Navy petty officer. What motivated you to even go into the military?
Well, I had got out of college and just getting married, a child on the way. And, back then, you go to try to get a job and everyone's like, well, you need experience, you need experience, you need experience. And it's like, okay, but I also need a job. And so that was one of the factors is, okay, I need the job. And I know I instant employment there, but then I also, have a family history of people within the military. And so that was kind of a factor as well. I thought, okay, I can go do this. I can get experience. And I wanted to correlate something that I did while I was in the military could correlate to something I could do when I got out. So that kind of led to part of the decision of what I did, except for riding submarines. They don't have submarines out here, but working in the nuclear power field, working on machinery, and that could correlate to something outside. So I decided to just go ahead and do that. I wanted to serve my country also on that aspect. So all those things combined, it's like, okay, let's just go do this. This is something I should do. I served during the first Gulf War era, during what they call Desert Shield and Desert Storm, and we were deployed a lot. I was on a fast attack submarine, so we were deployed a lot. And yeah, from, just doing some of our operations, tracking other submarines from other countries and taking some special forces people from here to there. And we actually had some points there where we had a few dignitaries that we took around with us and set up and did some operations where they had people trying to listen in, we call them spooks, trying to listen into other transmissions. So yeah, there was a whole lot of things that we was out there and did. And that's a big part of why I decided to get out when I did. I truly enjoyed what I was doing, and the quality of the people I served with was, they were just some incredibly smart, intelligent, good people. And I didn't really want to get out, but I was just deployed. Like I said, I was deployed so much, and I had these 3 little girls, and it's like, they know I'm dad, but they don't know who dad really is, or daddy, as they call me. They don't really know who daddy really is. And quite frankly, I know they were my daughters, but I really didn't know who they were.
Yeah.
So I decided to get out. Then, like I said, the sad part, though, I went to work at a power plant. I still rolled over into the Army National Guard, and because I wanted to get my 20 years in somehow. I wanted to continue to serve somehow. And then I started working at a power plant, helping build that plant, working 12, 16 hours a day, 6, 7 days a week. So I still didn't really get to spend a lot of time with them and know them until I had the accident that took my eyesight. And I think about that from that aspect. One of the greatest gifts I had was I actually finally got to know who my children were. That's one thing I tell people a lot is, a lot of times we think our sole job is to provide. Well, that is one of our responsibilities, but what are we supposed to provide? Just a house and food on the table? I come to realize, what my daughters really wanted from me was my attention, my affection, my love, and to teach them the things that took me to literally be there with them. It's so impactful. So I really encourage people that have this drive, if they want to have a family, to really focus on a work-life balance. I tell people all the time that, in my personal opinion, I lost my eyesight and I gained vision. I didn't lose my vision. I gained vision. Now, I'll flip this around for just a second. Having said that, if I could see again tomorrow, would I? In a heartbeat? Absolutely. But if I could go back 27 years almost now and change it, not a chance, because of that. I can't judge a book by its cover. I can't see who you are. I don't know how tall you are. I don't know the color of your hair, the color of your eyes, the color of your skin. I don't know whether you got tattoos from head to toe. I have no idea what you look like. So in order for me to get to know you, I have to open that cover of that book. I got to talk to you, find out a little bit about who you are and what you're about before I ever pass judgment. And I can't see things, so I don't know they exist. So I don't want them. And it makes me really focus on, what do I really need and what do I really want? And I think about that. An example I tell all the time was, I was sitting here at my table talking to my mother one time. This is after I lost my eyesight. And my daughters were in here jumping around, squealing and jumping up and down. And my mom was like, "Girls, you stop that. You're going to tear this up." I'm like, "No, Mom." I said, "Please, you stop." I said, "You see these pictures and things sitting on the walls, these knickknacks that are sitting out here?" I said, I can't see them. I don't know they exist. They might as well not even be here at some times. But that laughter, I can't replace it. That I can't replace. And it made me realize, what's truly valuable in our lives is us and relationships. And in all the travels I've done around the world, before losing my eyesight and after losing my eyesight, some of the most joyous people, happiest people that I think I've ever met are the ones that live in some of these, what we call third world countries, who don't, quote unquote, have all these things that we have. But what they do have is each other. And they seem to be the happiest people that I run into as a whole. They're not struggling to compete with what someone else has or what they don't have. And they just love life and love each other. So many of us are blinded by our eyesight. We just look at something and just assume. And it's not always the case.
I think back to your comments when you were sitting with your mom and, saying like, I can't see the knickknacks. I can't see the pictures. They might as well not be here. And, I'm very thankful. So I do have a little bit of usable sight. But mostly, things like nice chandeliers or pictures and things like that. I can't personally see the beauty because I can't see the beauty. And so those things for me are not very valuable. Thankfully, my husband is a minimalist. So he's really not even into like cluttering the walls and tables and with a bunch of stuff. But also kind of relating that to travel. I don't travel. Some people will travel and, go to museums and do quote unquote sightseeing, and I can do a little, but I still never have the same experience as others. And so the way I travel is through food and through wine. That's because that's how I can travel. That's how I can experience it. And so I literally travel for food, for wine. Of course, kind of immersing myself into local communities and just talking with the local people. That's always a treat for me too. But that's how I experience life.
Yeah. And having said that, having had eyesight for as long as I did, I miss nature. I miss seeing it so much. And you don't experience it the same way. You truly don't. But I love to tell this story as well. As I went into a museum in San Francisco, the Museum of Modern Arts out there one time, with some good friends of mine they just love to go into museums. And as we was walking around, here they are describing things. And this group of people walked up to me, and there was one of the gentlemen that kind of seemed like the leader of the group, walked up to me and very arrogantly and kind of cocky, he's like, "You're blind, aren't you?" And yeah, he said, "What in the world does a blind person get out of coming into a museum, man? I mean, like really, like what in the world? Why?" And I said, "Well, how many of you are in your group?" And he, told me there were 7 of them. And I said, "Well, will you indulge me?" I said, "Will you cover your eyes or put a blindfold over your eyes and then have all of your group stand back and then just have one of them walk us over to a portrait and describe that portrait to us one at a time, and then have everyone else take their turn." So we did this. And then at the end, I said, "Now take the blindfold off and you describe what you see in this portrait." And there were some similarities throughout part of the group, but truly there was 7 completely different descriptions of what they saw in this portrait. So I told him, I said, "So now you tell me, what do you think about seeing that portrait from one perspective compared to seeing it from 7 perspectives?" And the man, he apologized and literally started crying. And he said, "Thank you." He said, "Thank you for explaining that to me." And so there are those moments and times where I do like to go do stuff like that and have multiple people describe it, just so you get those perspectives. And to me, that was another lesson, if you will, another advantage in life is I'm more willing to sit around and listen to other people's viewpoints on so many different things. It doesn't mean I've changed my mind. It doesn't mean that I'll necessarily agree with him on all things, which, you're never always going to do that. But yet, it gives me more insight. It truly, once again, gives me a broader vision of the world and of life than being blind by my own eyesight.
Hello, This is Michelle, the host of Haunted Moonlight, a Podmoth Network podcast. If you are like me and enjoy anything and everything spooky, then this podcast is for you. New episodes drop every Sunday and are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Audible, and iHeartRadio. Can't wait to keep it spooky with you.
That early Sunday in 1997, can you share what you do remember about the accident that took your eyesight?
Me and a good friend of mine was going to go out turkey hunting. And I had harvested a turkey the day before. Mm-hmm. So we got up and we went out. And I didn't even have a gun with me. I was just going to go call with him. And I distinctly remember, literally, it was about a mile from where I live at right now. And it was just the next block over. And I drove over there, and I can remember driving back into this little lake and parking and getting our stuff together and walking around the gate and back this fire trail, went through the woods around the edge of the lake. And we set up, and we intentionally separated for me to call for him and was to work our way back together. And in the process of working our way back together, I distinctly remember, sitting there, listening to the birds chirping, the sun coming up in the early morning, the leaves rustling, the squirrels running around and barking, and kind of moving my way back toward him. I just got enveloped in this aura, this presence. I mean, I've never felt anything like that before in my life or since, of just being surrounded by whatever this presence was. And it just silenced everything. All those birds that were chirping silenced. Leaves quit rustling. You couldn't hear nothing running through. And I knew something was not right. And I started to just kind of squat down and reach up to cover my face when I heard the boom. And I didn't see him any more than he saw me. And I remember, getting up off my belly onto my knees and reaching up to wipe my eyes. My head's ringing and pounding, and wiping my eyes simply because I thought I had something covering my face. And when I still couldn't see, I took my gloves off and I reached up and I wiped them again. Only this time, as I could feel the blood and probably the contents of my eyes and everything running down my hands, I knew what had happened. And my buddy come running over, and remembering picking me up and throwing me on his shoulder. And I was like, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm going to carry you out of here." I said, "You can't get me out of here." He said, "I got to." He said, "You told me." He said, he said, "I got to carry you out of here. You'll be dead before I get back." And I said, "You've got to put me down. You know it as well as I do. The only chance I have is for you to go, because I'll be dead before you get me out of here." So he set me down, leaned me against a tree, and then it got to the point where I couldn't talk really. And he took his finger and he cleared my airway so I could take a breath, and he ran. And I distinctly remember sitting there for just a little bit and calming myself down. And I think the time in the military helped me with this, all that training. It was when chaos, your best response is going to be when you can calm down. So calming myself down, but yet, trying to remember and just paint these pictures of my family into my face, my daughter's pictures into my face and mind. And then as I was starting to lose my strength and stuff, I remember reaching down, scooping up a big pile of leaves and for me to lay my head on. I want to keep my head above my feet and above my heart. And so I laid down, and I got to the point where I couldn't clear my airway with my finger. So I was fortunate enough to be able to reach around and found a little piece of a bush, and I broke a little stem off of a bush, and I was shoving that down my throat to clear my airway, and just sitting there, just waiting and listening and waiting. And then after, I don't know, probably 20 minutes or 30 minutes, I could hear the sirens coming, and stuff. And then it got to the point where I was so weak that I, fortunately, the blood and stuff, whatever, clotted or just lost much of it, I don't know which, that I was able to keep my airway at least open somewhat because I couldn't move my arms enough to clear it anymore. And then I could hear everyone running, hollering my name and running past me, and I couldn't get up. And finally, I heard someone just come and just stop literally right in front of me. And I was sitting there just laying there thinking, okay, and they didn't say anything for like 30 seconds or so. And I thought I was yelling, and I made a little noise. And he told me afterwards, he said it sounded like a little whimpering puppy. And I asked the guy, I said, why it took so long? He told me, he said, I thought you were lying there dead. And I didn't, he was standing there crying. But once I whimpered, he hollered and told everyone he found me. And they gathered up, threw me in a stretcher. They carried me across some of the stripper hills to a lake. They put me in a boat, took me across the lake. And that's my dad showed up at this point and got in the boat with me. And I remember doing a little gesture to show him that I was still in my head. I was able to move my fingers enough to do so. And then it took me across the lake, put me in an ambulance into a helicopter. And they intubated me on that helicopter. And that's the last thing I kind of remembered before I woke up from after surgery. And they told me I had like 85 pellets because it was a shotgun. It was shot. It wasn't a single bullet. So I had 85 pellets up in my head and face, and took out some teeth and naturally took my eyesight out. Told me I took a shot at about a full shotgun blast to the face in about 9 steps. So, and then I distinctly remember I couldn't talk initially. And then after about a day or so, I got to where I could talk, and I was just on this adrenaline high, and started making jokes right off the bat. And they sent me home too early. They sent me home after, I think, 4 days. No more got home. My body crashed, and they had to take me back to the hospital for almost 2 weeks. I tell my buddy that I was in the accident with, we were really, really good friends growing up. Our birthdays are 2 months apart, and we lived within 3 miles of each other our entire lives. Went to school together, graduated together. He actually had went into the service as well as a medic, and was working as an emergency room nurse when we had the accident. But I tell him all the time that he's much better looking to me now than he used to be. Yeah, and we're still really, really, really good friends, which speaks volumes for his character, and that's awesome to me. One of the greatest gifts I was given in my life is to be able to sit here and honestly say that I was never the slightest bit angry or bitter at him, even though he was at himself. And I wish he never had to have gone through the struggles that he went through dealing with what had happened.
Thank you for sharing that. I can't even imagine how scary that must have been, and for you to have had that training to help keep yourself calm to some degree. That's really impressive. And I can't imagine knowing what your friend had gone through. I know personally, thinking if I had been responsible for something like that, I could definitely see how it could emotionally destroy me, and feeling just endlessly guilty, I think, for causing this life-changing, permanent experience for this other person, and thinking that it's going to do the worst, even though at the time probably neither of you knew that it was going to actually turn into being such an amazing turn of events for you.
Yeah, there's no way, and no doubt. And in one of the documentaries that I was in, he joined in it, which took a lot of courage for him to do so. And distinctly remember a couple of things. After probably about 3 weeks, a month after I was back home from the hospital and stuff, I can distinctly remember telling him when he came over, I said, please let it go. I said, I know you would have never done anything to ever, ever, ever hurt me. And, I distinctly remember telling him, from my own personal viewpoint, standpoint, I said, there's 2 beings on this earth. And I said, the good Lord and Satan. And I said, it might have been your physical finger on that trigger, but it was It wasn't you that would have pulled it. It was someone else that was trying to destroy us, trying to destroy our friendship, trying to destroy us personally. Please, please, please let it go. And don't let it bother you. And I told him, I said, the only thing that you owe me, the only thing I ever ask of you is always be my friend. Don't walk away from me. You owe me no more than that. Nothing. And there was a little time period there where he kind of faded away a little bit, and as he was trying to deal with it emotionally. But he said, I'm at a point in my life now to where it's not an open wound anymore. It's a scar, but it's not an open wound. And I remember telling him, and I truly feel this way, I wish the scar would go away. I wish any aspect of burden or guilt or anger would go away for him, because he's too good of a person and too good of a friend to carry or deal with any of that. But yet it made me realize we all make mistakes in our life. And, especially when we don't intend to, or when somebody doesn't intend to, we have to learn to forgive each other and let things go. And I truly believe that in all of our lives, if we're going to move forward, we have to learn to let go of all these negative emotions that are holding us back, because if we don't, they just cripple us. And there's never any healing. And it also made me realize that if I can let this kind of stuff go, then this other stuff I can let go so much easier. And it truly has allowed me the pleasure of just letting other stuff go and finding humor and joy in life instead of dwelling in that anger or bitterness.
Your mindset today is so incredible. And, not only have you overcome the adversity that's related to the accident, but you're now motivating other people. I can imagine having had lost your sight after having full sight, that's a huge thing. And so I'm just wondering, if you go back to 97, was there a journey you personally had to take to get to where you are today?
Oh, absolutely. For sure. Yeah, I'm human. There's that's for sure. And because, like I said, I distinctly remember, just wondering, how am I going to do anything? What, and questioning my value, my purpose, and worth, and everything. And I tell the story, and it's in the book. It's in the book that I wrote, and I don't know if you guys have the opportunity to listen to the book or not. For those who are blind and visually impaired, if they go to Bard mobile, through the Library of Congress, the book is available out there for them to listen to. And then for people who have eyesight, I don't think there's an audio version they can get, but they can definitely pick up the book through Amazon, I believe. But anyway, in that book, I told a story, and I was so fortunate that this happened so quickly after losing my eyesight. It was about 2 months after the accident. I was lying in my living room here in the house that I'm in right now, lying on my couch, on my back, with my left foot on the floor, just fighting back tears, what I said earlier, thinking about my girls. I really was, what do they think of me? How am I going to be daddy? How am I going to do anything? And I had went from weighing 181 pounds or so down to 129 pounds, drinking Ensure shakes like they were candy. And I was weak as a kitten, but finally had kind of got enough strength to get up. And I had no mobility training at the time, but I walked the 20 feet from my couch into the kitchen where I'm at right now, and opened the closet door, which is literally right behind where I'm sitting right now. I can turn around and touch it. And I got into the closet and I took the broom out of the closet and I unscrewed the handle of the broom and took the broom handle out. And I just headed out the back door. And I started moving that broomstick back and forth in front of me like I would a cane today. And a few steps into the yard, I was completely lost, but I kept going. And I ran into the edge of my little field. And how I knew it was my little field is because weeds were up to my chest. I turned and started going down the edge of the little field. And I kind of sensed something else right there by me after a moment. And I started swinging that broomstick out in front of me, about chest high, just swinging it back and forth, hitting the weeds. And I took a couple of steps into those weeds and I hit my little bitty barn. I just lowered my head and I fought back more tears. I turned around and I started going across the yard. And I ran into my youngest daughter at the time, who was 5 years old. And she looked up at me and she said, "Daddy, what's wrong?" I said, "Nothing, Bug." That's what I call her. Her name's Taylor. I call her Bug. I got 3 beautiful daughters, Courtney, Ashley, Taylor. I call them Court, Peanut, and Bug. I said, if you got to know, I'm a little frustrated. I heard her stomp her foot, and she lowered her voice and said, "Daddy, why are you frustrated?" I was like, whoa, I said, "Well, girl," I said, "if you got to know, it's because I can't get into that little barn without walking through chest-high weeds, and I can't see to mow them." She said, "Daddy, I'll help you." I was like, "What?" She said, "I'll help you, Daddy." My mind was just racing, thinking, "You're 5, I'm blind. There's no way. And, I am supposed to be helping you, not you helping me. And, what if you get hurt? And what if I can't?" And as I stood there, I heard, "Trust me, you can do it. Trust me." Just as plain as day. And that little girl didn't say it, but I heard it just like we're talking right now. So I looked down at her and I said, "Okay, girl, if you got the guts, take my hand and lead me to the barn or to the garage." She grabbed my pointer finger on my left hand, took me around the house, over to the garage, opened the big door on the garage. She walked me over to the riding lawnmower. I jumped on, put her on my lap, turned it on, fired it up, out the door we went. She said, "Stop!" We had to dodge the truck and the fuel tank in the garage and a tree, and she drove me out to that little barn. I shut the lawnmower off, had her go up to the house and watch me. Fired the lawnmower back up, engaged the blades, and I put my left hand against the barn. I thought, okay, there you are. And I mowed a lap around that barn. I got to the corner, and actually I had to back up and go forward, and get my hand on it again. I mowed a lap. Then I took that broomstick and held it against the barn. I mowed 2 more laps. So I shut the lawnmower off. I heard her up the house just jumping up and down, squealing. I walked straight up to her, and she was jumping up and down saying, "You did it, Daddy. You did it. I knew you could do it. I knew you could do it." I picked her up. I gave her a huge hug. And instead of fighting back tears, I had tears of hope just flowing off my face. And I said, "You're right. I love you." And it was right then and there that I knew I was still Daddy. And to those girls, I knew I was still the man. And I knew that I could. And all 3 of my girls, they were the ones telling me, "Get up off your knees, Daddy, and stand up. Get up off your knees, Daddy, and step. Get up off your knees because you can." Well, all these adults initially were saying, "No, no, 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 no. Let me do it for you." My girls were saying, "Go, go, 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 Daddy. Yes, you can." And I tell everybody they changed my vision more than the loss of my eyesight ever did. And I was so fortunate that happened to me so quickly after losing my eyesight. To say I still didn't struggle and no, I can't. But I can say that was huge. And I started right then and there, more in the healing process and doing more things and just, figure out how to do this. And, I got to where I was using, push mowing around the outbuildings and around my pond and using a chainsaw again. And I got into building houses, something I didn't do before I lost my eyesight, framing, sheeting, wiring, roofing. I was sitting here at the house, several years after I lost my eyesight and talking to my Aunt Donna, and she was having a her and my Uncle Jim, they were having a new home built. And I told her, while I was talking to her, I said, man, I wish the guys that was building their house would let me come over and help them. I know I can do some of that stuff. And she told them about me. And I didn't know the rest of the story for probably 10 years after this happened, but she told them about me, about being blind and wanting to help. And she asked if they would let me. And they told her, said, no, we can't do that. And she said, gentlemen, you don't understand. You will give him 2 weeks to come over here and help you and try. And if it works out, he'll stay here until my home's finished being built. And if it doesn't work out, I'll understand and he'll understand. But if you don't give him 2 weeks, I'm going to fire you and I'm going to find someone else to finish building my home. I worked for those guys for 14 years.
Wow.
Building numerous homes and decks and porches and stuff. And simply her believing in me and standing up for me enough to give me a chance. I love to talk to caregivers, about people with disabilities, if you will. They always want to do what my parents initially wanted to do and keep me in a bubble. I'll say, if someone was to take your loved one and throw them in a jail cell and start to slam that door on that cell, that jail cell shut and lock it. And if they were to throw them in that jail cell unjustly, no cause of their own, wouldn't you fight with all your might to prevent them from being thrown in that cell and that door being shut on their life? And the answer that I always get is yes, I would. So my comment to them is always, okay, then why are you? If they've got an opportunity to do something, to experience something, to live this life, why not give them the opportunity? Why not let them try? Why not let someone else try to help them and teach you? Why just think the only place you can live is in this bubble, in this jail cell? Why? Because I guarantee you, they can do so much more than you think you can. And that's where I tell people all the time, the word disabled, I understand the need for the word and I appreciate it in some aspects. And then there's those aspects where I don't, because you take it at its core, it just means not able. Well, you take that word at its core, every single human being on the face of the earth could be categorized as disabled, not able to do something. It's just not our gift. But yet, each and every one of us can do so much more than we sometimes think we can, and that others think we can. So if we'll just simply believe in ourselves and believe in each other and give each other a chance, what can we not do? And that's one of the things I like to tell people. And I think back when I got out of college, yeah, I'd give you a job. You got the knowledge, but you need experience. How am I going to get it if you don't give me a chance? And so I just truly love to try to break that stigma down a lot and really let them focus on it from that aspect of, I'm no different than you are. I just can't see. I'm still a human being that can do things. So just believe in me.
Positive framing of the word disabled. I think back to, I heard this, phrase. The phrase was essentially, if you are lucky enough, you will live to be old enough to become disabled. And it really talks about that universality of, in some ways, we all have disadvantages in certain areas. And just because you can't see it, or just because it's not measurable from like a brain scan, doesn't mean that they don't exist. And so I really hope that we can do more to positively frame disability and show that it really is an ability in so many ways. And also kind of get tuned into our child brains, kind of thinking about the story of your daughter. It's so incredible how resilient children are, and, kind of looking at you as their dad, dad's our hero, dad's invincible, dad's strong, he can do anything. And then you had the adults on the other side saying, no, like things are going to change. You're not going to be able to do everything. And that's because they've grown hard to the world, and they've grown to be closed-minded. And so I think if we can all kind of channel our child brains more often, that the world would just be a better place.
Absolutely. I distinctly remember too walking through a store one time and with my cane, and this little kid just speaks up. What's that? What is that thing in your hand? Her mother said, and they're saying, "Shh, be quiet, be quiet." And I'm like, "Whoa, no." I said, please let them ask. And why are you wearing glasses? And I just explained it, and I said, please let them ask. I said, how are they going to know otherwise unless you allow them to ask? And this always having to shh, I think, is so wrong. That's the beauty, exactly what you're talking about, the beauty and innocence of children, and quite frankly, sometimes the bluntness of it. And it's just, approaching those hard topics, those hard subjects, that's how is to just simply talk about it.
Hi, my wonderful goat fans. Thank you so much again for tuning in. You all are truly the best. If you are enjoying this episode and all the incredible people and stories we showcase on this show, I'd like to ask you to consider supporting us in 2 other ways. 5-star ratings and reviews tell platforms like Spotify and Apple that you find this content valuable and that others may too, meaning they're more likely to show it to future listeners. Secondly, we are now on Patreon, and for just $3 a month, you can help me to continue to source incredible guests and independently produce this show. Visit patreon.com/NotYourAverageGoat to consider joining us today. Again, thank you so much for being one of our greatest of all time fans.
From watching the documentary, watching the Steve Harvey video, like the bond you have with your daughters, I can tell is just so, so special. And the story you told me earlier about your youngest daughter helping you to mow the lawn, I think that's just a testament to how great of a dad you are. And, you are also a single parent as well. I'm not really sure, kind of the circumstances that, left you as a single parent, but I know just parenting itself can be very challenging. And then to try to navigate parenting with this new normal for yourself, like what for you, kind of reflecting on being a single parent who also just happens to be blind, what was some of the happiest moments or, funniest moments, as you were kind of learning to be this dad with, trying to also navigate your disability?
I'll start by saying this. No matter what mountain I climb, what river I paddle or kayak, the pinnacle of anything I've ever achieved in my life, the greatest accomplishment of anything I ever achieved in my life, is the fact that I raised those 3 girls, and the fact that they all 3 will walk up to me no matter where I'm at, who I'm around, put their arms around me and say, "I love you, Daddy." I can never top that. And I'm so thankful that, I do. I love them immensely. But, one of the funny stories I think about is, they're typical kids. They're typical kids. And kids, they try to get away with anything they can get away with. And they had done something. I don't even remember really what it was. And so I disciplined them a little bit. So they were mad. So they were going to get me back. And in between the kitchen, and I tore the wall out since, but in between the kitchen and then the living room, just walking through that doorway, there's just a little doorway. They rearranged the furniture in that living room, and they put a little end table right in front of that door. So, as you do, being blind, you don't walk through your house typically with a cane, So I was going through there, kind of tapping my way up with my, touched the side of the wall with my fingers, but I was just walking through there, and I end over end. I just go end over end over that end table.
Goodness.
And I was sitting there like, and I hear them all three in there snickering and laughing, because I fell and, well, thankfully I wasn't hurt, but so unfortunately, I kind of had to discipline them again because I seriously could have gotten hurt. But so, so, but I wanted to laugh about it at the same time. I thought, you little snots, and we laugh about it today. I mean, we truly do. But all three say they never rearranged the furniture again. But I think, but they're typical kids. That's just the thing about it. And, I just think I helped coach their softball teams. Being blind, I would do I'd sit there and I'd stand at home plate and I'd hit the ball, to all the bases and do fielding practice with them and just different things like that. And I remember being at their softball game one time too, and there was an umpire there, and I was just giving him a hard time. I said, "Oh, that's a bad call." And he come running over to me, and he said, "What the heck? Are you blind or something?" And I lifted up my glasses and I said, "Well, as a matter of fact, yes, I am." And they said, he just started stumbling all over himself like, He'd come up to me afterwards and apologized. I said, "Don't you dare apologize to me, because I'm the one that instigated it. I started it, and but isn't it so, though, to find humor? I mean, to find humor in your life makes life so much easier, and intent. I talk about that a lot too. People truly know if someone's words are intentionally to hurt you or not.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're not meant to truly belittle you or hurt you, laugh with them. If it's laugh at life, laugh at calamity, and it just makes it so much more enjoyable.
Lonnie, you're also a renowned extreme sports athlete. You even won the National Geographic Adventure of the Year back in 2015, and you've done everything from rock climbing and summiting some of North America's tallest mountains and up downhill skiing and kayaking. I'm just curious. I mean, this is all super incredible. Were you an extreme sports athlete before the accident happened, or is this something you got into afterward?
Afterwards, yeah. I didn't snow ski. I didn't kayak, rock climb. Like I said, I hiked around the woods and stuff like that. But no, I didn't. I did none of it before I lost my eyesight. And it all began for me, like I said, when I went to that VA blind rehab center in Chicago, and they asked me, said, "Lonnie, we know blind people snow ski. Will you be our guinea pig?" And there was these younger guys. There's 4 of them that's up there. I said, "Yeah, twist my arm." So I think the reason they asked me was because some of that backstory, they heard about me building these houses and using the chainsaw. So they knew I had a confidence to try to do things. But the role it has played since then has just really given me a purpose and a platform to try to break down those barriers, to show people, how you still have this life, you still can. And it's given me a way to continue to serve, if you will. I couldn't serve in the military anymore as an active duty person, but yet I can still serve, I think. And I view it that way, a way to serve our country, to serve society and these other veterans and these other people with disabilities and those without, just everybody, just to show what is truly possible if we'll simply unite and help each other. A blind man alone can't kayak the Grand Canyon. A blind man alone can't climb Mount Everest. He can't climb this tower, but we did it, but we did it. Another aspect of this loss of vision, and talk about getting older. And I remember having this discussion with my dad here not too many months back. "Well, Lonnie, I'm not the man I used to be." "Well, Lonnie, I'm not the man I used to be." "No, but you're still a man of extreme value and importance." And it's just this aspect our purpose in life. Where we're at, I truly believe where we're at the moments we're in is where we're supposed to be. That's our purpose. And that purpose is going to constantly change throughout our life. And we want to put this aspect of, well, I was more important. I was more important as a person when I could see than I am since I can't see. Or, in my dad's case, I was more of a man when I could do all this that I can't quite do now that I used to be able to. And no, I said, Dad, look at how your grandchildren and your great grandchildren come to you and talk to you and have you teach them things. You tell me that you have no value. I said, maybe you're more important now than you were when you could do all these things that you quote unquote can't do anymore. It's this mindset and stigma, kind of like what you were talking about earlier, that I tried to spare is, no matter where we're at in our life, we have value, we have purpose. And when I go around talking to these schools, I tell everybody the same thing. I said, the cool thing about being you is there's nobody else in the world like you. There's nobody in the world that has this unique set of gifts that you have in your hands. You might share gifts with other people, but nobody, absolutely nobody, has this collection of gifts that you have. That's what makes you important. In my view, the one aspect of the beauty of the pandemic being in 2020 is it clearly showed all of us how valuable we all are. Because prior to the pandemic, who would have considered Walmart workers as essential workers? Mm-hmm. Or these people that work in these food processing as essential? But during the pandemic, they were on a list of people that were essential that had to go to work so that the rest of us could continue to survive. And, and this is paraphrasing a story about John F. Kennedy in NASA, that it reminded me of that as well. As when he was taking some of the major sponsors and donors and people through the halls of NASA, the buildings of NASA, they ran into the janitor. And one of the sponsors asked him, and they didn't realize it was a janitor, except for President Kennedy. They asked the gentleman, said, what is your job here? And before the janitor could answer, President Kennedy spoke up and said, he's helping put men on the moon. Realizing that if that man didn't do his job, keeping that building clean, then these scientists and these engineers wouldn't want to come into work in that place. And I think about that through us in societies. We want to put that this person is more valuable than this. No. A CEO of a company couldn't lead the company if it wasn't for the workers. And the workers couldn't, and I think of a school system, for example, the principal, is the head of the school, if you will, but yet if it wasn't for the teachers, if it wasn't for the cooks, if it wasn't for the janitors, if it wasn't for the maintenance men, if it wasn't for that school could not function. Every single person is extremely valuable. And I always tell these kids about this basket of gifts. You have carpenters, you have doctors, you have lawyers, you have computer people, you have teachers, you have lawn people do lawn care. I mean, just think of any occupation out there. If it wasn't for the people having the gifts that they have, then their gifts wouldn't be mine. If it wasn't for the people doing the jobs that they do, who would help do that for me? I couldn't do these things individually. So thankfully we all are different with our unique set of gifts. And once again, your gifts then become my gifts, become our gifts. And there's none less important than others.
I love your reinforcement of this communal belonging and teamwork. And I think it illustrates, you said a few minutes ago that, a blind person can't kayak the Colorado River by themselves. They can't climb Mount Everest by themselves, but they can with others helping and others supporting, that it is this team effort. And I imagine that, you've had so many incredible sports adventures. And I'm curious, I know for you, it's always the journey and not necessarily the accolade or the end result that's most important. So I'm wondering for you, what's been one of your most special journeys that you've taken in the extreme sports arena?
In my case, I truly have to pretty much say all of them.
Yeah.
Because for me to do them, like I said, it takes someone else to be there with me. And that's just another person that has been placed in my life, another blessing that has been given me, another gift that has been given me is these people that have the courage and the sacrifice to help me do these things.
You've briefly mentioned your award-winning book, 226, and I was wondering if you could just share with the listeners a little bit about the adventure that shapes that story.
It's titled a couple of different ways. 226-mile Grand Canyon Adventure, which 226 is the number of miles the Colorado River goes through the Grand Canyon, the typical run that people make. And it's 226-mile Grand Canyon Adventure, 226, how I become the first blind person to kayak the Colorado River through the Grand Canyon. And but really what the book is it's really kind of a quasi-autobiography. A few stories growing up, like talk to my mom and dad and brother and some people, and then a few stories of my time in the military. And then kind of culminates with the first trip of the Colorado River through the Grand Canyon, first kayaking trip of the Colorado River through the Grand Canyon. And we never thought it could be done. We didn't know. And I literally had 14 days of whitewater experience under my belt when I went to the Grand Canyon for the first time. And, I think what makes the book is truly everyone else's voices in the book, not so much mine, but everyone else's. And it's a simple little read because I'm a simple person. And I literally dictated the book, dictated stuff to a ghostwriter, and he put it to print. And I spent 9 months kind of dumbing it down, if you will. Like my dad said, grow up, be an idiot. And I had to dumb it back down because it's like, some of the stuff in there, it was embellished a lot. And I'm like, why did you do that? And it's like, well, you got to kind of make it sound good. And I said, no, it's going to be what it is, or it's not going to be. That's not me. It's going to be what it is, or it's not going to be. So I spent 9 months doing that, and it became what it did. So yeah, that's kind of really what it is. It culminates with that first trip down the Grand Canyon, some stories about that and how it came about.
In terms of embellishing, though, that particular adventure, whitewater kayaking adventure, I mean, it's pretty challenging, even if you do have full sight, I've heard.
Yeah, it can be for sure. I don't recommend people go out there with just 14 days of whitewater experience before they do it. That's not the smartest thing I've ever done. But another story. My dad, he tells everybody, truly has. I told several people this when we're out and about. He said, Lonnie, when it comes to Lonnie, he said, the only thing it could have taken was his eyesight when he got shot, because there's definitely nothing else in between his ears. So, and that's my dad talking about me there. So, but it's, I'll not forget to, one of the rapids we ran. After we ran it, my primary guy, and I was being led by these other combat injured veterans, these disabled veterans. And my primary guide, once we got through the rapid, he paddled over to me and he said, he said, I was told under no circumstances was I to lead you through this rapid. And I said, why did you? And he said, because we could. I just thought, wow, what a risk.
I bet you probably would have told him to do it anyway if he had told you beforehand. Hey, I'm not supposed to do this.
Yeah, well, that's what he did. He did say that as well. He said, I was told, you might try to talk me into it and you might want to do it, but don't do it.
So the podcast that I'm host, it's called Not Your Average Goat. GOAT standing for greatest of all time. The sports term that's oftentimes used for different folks. I'm a big sports person myself, not extreme sports, though maybe one day. But I like to ask, because everyone who I bring on the show, I consider to be a not average goat, meaning that, maybe, most people in the world may not know about you, but I believe that the world should know about you. And so I like to ask the people who I bring on, what, maybe it's an experience or a time throughout your life, or who has been like your GOAT or your biggest motivation throughout your journey?
Pretty much everybody out there. And I say that with all sincerity, is going back to the fact that you all inspire me. When I look at all the gifts that you all have and the things that you do and the compassion and the kindness and it's truly that. I mean, I just look around this world and the people and it's just amazing. Through all the ugliness sometimes, the good far, far, far exceeds the not so good, I think. And I truly draw inspiration from that. And I just want to give back to that. And that's really where it's at for me. And I'm so thankful for all of you. And just like yourself, thinking about your story, the little bit that I know about it in your story, it's just wow. Wow. And you're doing things with this platform that I have no concept of how to do.
Well, thank you.
And, but it's just like, well, thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Thank you for coming into my life. And thank you for being just another light in the darkness. And that's truly where it's at for me.
Well, I really appreciate that. And I would say, I think so many people are very thankful for you, Lonnie, and what you do as well. And I know today a lot of that looks like your speaking engagements and your motivational talks that you give. And I know you do a lot of those for schools. Do you work with other types of organizations and come in and speak?
Oh yeah. I can. I've spoken conventions with as many people as 4,500 people, I think, as the largest group, down to just a few. And that's something I enjoy doing. I do it quite a bit. It kind of helps me to be able to go out and do some of these adventures by doing this kind of stuff. So
that's awesome. How can, if someone did want to hire you or reach out for a speaking engagement, how can they learn more?
Well, one, they can go to my website, lonniebedwell.com, and there's a link that comes through to me, or they can reach out directly to lonnie.r.bedwell@gmail, LONNIE.r.bedwell, BEDWELL @gmail.
Well, Lonnie, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you even more this afternoon. And I hope we can stay in touch too. I would love to continue to follow your adventures. Not Your Average Goat is produced and edited by yours truly, with music by Anton Blazov and Sergio Quadrado. All content is copyrighted and should not be reused, reproduced, or recreated without explicit consent. Please email nyagpodcast@gmail.com for questions.